Everything went as usual: home, work, people around, and no one even guessed what could happen when suddenly one girl, who was the vice president, came to work and had a briefing ahead of her, but she looked sad. She studied the relevant cases and the report of the planning group, and at the meeting proposed to continue the planned process. Many have noticed that today she is like a different person, because she used to be strict and scary, and now she listens to the team members. Everyone thought she was the perfect boss, but not just the perfect boss, but the perfect nightmare boss. The girl did not argue that she should be perfect, because if she was not like that, she could die. She just wanted to live freely and comfortably without demanding much, and she couldn't believe that she had possessed a villainess in a mindless drama. Not long ago, this girl moved to a new home. All that remained was to unpack her things. She really liked the house itself. Previously, her name was Jia, and it was difficult for her. She had nothing, because she was from an orphanage and survived only thanks to perseverance. But in the end, she managed to get her own house, which even had a veranda, which she liked very much. Today she decided to rest and just order dinner at home. And rejoicing, she suddenly felt pain in her heart again. At the hospital, she was told that everything was fine, but for some reason this made her worried. Then she sat down to watch the series with the heroine Shin and thought that if she were her, she would live differently. Han didn't understand why the villains in dramas were always like that. They only screamed and fought for half of the entire drama. Even if they gnash their teeth and say they're going to kill someone, they don't think about what's going to happen next. However, this is the attraction of this, and Han continues to watch them while cursing and cursing. Also, she has already gone far with this viewing, so she decided that she must watch it to the end and see how it all ends. Suddenly, the girl felt her heart shrink again, and she felt as if she was in some strange place. Her face contorted in horror because the pain was just terrifying like never before. Han knew that she needed to call an ambulance urgently and reached for the phone, but only fell to the floor unconscious. Thoughts were still swirling in her mind that she had worked very hard to live to see this moment. Han never reached for the phone and knew she was dying, but then she felt her body again. She could not understand what was happening, but it became clear that she was alive, although she had a severe headache. The girl first thought she was in the hospital when she heard a distant voice calling for the doctor as she woke up. A woman immediately approached her, who began to scold her for such pathetic behavior, not understanding why she was upset. She was also unhappy that she was sitting here and chilling instead of going to work, because she was the vice president. Han was frightened, not understanding who this aunt was and what the hell was going on here, and she suddenly reminded her that she was her mother. The woman then called her Shin and asked her to stay in bed until the doctor came to see her. This name, which this lady called Han, shocked the girl greatly, because Shin is the heroine of the series that she watched. For a moment, a terrible guess flashed through her, and she decided to check if this incredible event had really happened to her. The girl immediately ran to the mirror and saw that her face remained the same, but the scar on her forehead had disappeared. Han was sure that she had died of a heart attack and hit her forehead on the table, which must have caused a lot of blood. Then the girl began to look around, and the room seemed very familiar to her, but she was also sure that it was the first time here. From behind the door, she heard the doctor telling her mother that she had a short-term memory loss due to a concussion. He also promised that her memory would return to her and asked this mother not to worry too much and make sure that her daughter copes with stress. Han was hysterical after all. She had not only died a senseless death when she finally had a home of her own, now she's also the villain Shin from the crazy drama she watched every night. But no matter how much she wanted to deny this situation, the memories continued to creep into her mind. She remembered all kinds of her atrocities, especially the fact that she threatened the main character. There were a lot of these actions, and it was now that Han was here. Shin tortured that girl to death around this time, which means that according to the plot, she will now be destroyed by the three main characters. These men loved the main character, and for this reason, Sarah will only die in the future. The girl was going crazy because she had just died of a heart attack, and now she had to die again, like a pathetic villain. She decided to try to avoid it somehow, and quickly packed her things, decided to run away from this house. She was sad because she had already started her life from the very day and survived thanks to her determination. Therefore, Han is sure that living a new life without having anything is much better than being a villain. When she got to the gate and had already pressed the button, footsteps were heard from behind, and then a guy began to ask where she was going. His voice sounded angry, and he also looked at the girl with anger, coming closer and closer to her, instilling fear in her. She recognized him. It was Aaron, but she did not understand why they had collided at the moment when she was about to flee. This man was one of the three main characters, and he was also the illegitimate son of the late Chairman Jun, one of the founders of Seongwon. He lost his mother and came to Xiongwan out of desperation, and in him, Chairman Shin saw the image of the late chairman and decided to support him. As a result, Aaron rose to the position of vice president, but Xiongwan's rightful heir was Shin Sera. She couldn't accept this state of affairs, believing that this spineless idiot couldn't take this place. The girl called him all sorts of nasty things, while also insulting his mother, saying that she was just putting herself on display. Shin swore that she would take it back, even if she had to kill him to do so, and after that, they became bitter enemies. And then Aaron met the main character Lee, who found herself in the same predicament and fell in love with her. Shin Sera's tyranny became simply unbearable after that. Lee Sung-kyung cried that she couldn't take it anymore. The guy then decided to stage a car accident to disguise the murder, the purpose of which was Shin Sera. Han knew how events would unfold and didn't want to die like this, and now she needed to get out of this situation. She explained to Aaron that she was going to leave everything behind and then she wouldn't have to bother fighting for power. He will also inherit everything and will not see her face again. He only needs to let her go to all four sides now. The guy decided that this was some kind of trick, but she claimed that now it was all pointless and again asked to let her go. Aaron thought she was crazy because he cleaned up all the mess after her and also looks after the chairman. He can't watch her do more crazy things, but the girl has now decided to repeat the request more demandingly. Realizing that she couldn't persuade him, Shin Sera slapped his forehead in the face and then confirmed that she had indeed gone mad. She also asked if he liked being beaten by someone who had lost his mind, and then asked him to listen to her. The girl said that she was going to leave home forever and asked to stop worrying about her. Suddenly, she felt herself feel bad again, and something tightened in her chest and she decided that she was having another heart attack. She woke up already in the hospital, her mother was nearby, and then they went to the doctor, who did not reveal any vivid symptoms. Shin Sera did not understand why, because she was in pain and her heart seemed to be shrinking, and the doctor said that this was a psychosomatic disorder. On the way back, she grumbled that it annoyed her, but her mother remained calm, although she spoke reproachfully. She also asked her daughter to thank Aaron for carrying her to the room when she fainted. Then mother said that it hurts her and dad very much every time Shin Sera does this. The girl began to make excuses that she got sick because she was overexerting herself and believed that she needed to leave and rest. Her mother did not understand her because she herself wanted to become vice president, and even for this she got engaged to Chairman Cha Jae-young. And since he was the subject of the subject, mother wondered if Shin Sera was still in contact with him, since they had drifted apart. The girl remembered how she asked him to stop playing untouchable because he could not find anyone of this level. She did not understand why he treated her like this because she was his fiancée and he was another hero of this drama. And thanks to his bright appearance, outstanding abilities and character, he was an ideal man. Cha reminded her that they were just business partners and Shin Sera had to agree not to make contact. Han understood that he looked like a gentleman, but she didn't see the point in a villainess like her marrying such a superficial man. She assumed that the original Shin Sera just loved bad boys, but Jia just hated them. However, she was more worried about the heart attack that had happened so suddenly, and she thought it was because she had given up on Shin Sera's fate. She did not know what to do, to die again or to live and die as a villain. In any case, the outcome would be the same. At that moment, she received a message from Cha's fiancé, who asked her to meet and talk. The girl agreed, thinking that she would only talk to him and then leave, while the place to meet seemed unusual to her. When she arrived, Cha asked her to sit down and make herself comfortable, and it was obvious that he was not particularly happy to see her. Jae-young dated his fiancée only for profit because he truly loved Lee Sung-kyung, and Shin Sera's life deteriorated rapidly. As a result, their relationship reached the point that they divorced. Cha then becomes embroiled in corruption and becomes a notorious economic criminal. Han knew that in order to survive here in the future, she shouldn't mess with this person. Cha asked why she wrote to him and asked for a breakup, and she explained that she just wanted to. The guy was confused because she herself begged him, almost crawling on the floor, and now she wants to break off the engagement. He even suggested that the whole situation just still seems like a joke to her, or that she is continuing an emotional childish game. Cha also explained that marriage is a kind of business, and it cannot be broken or settled on a whim. Shin Sera explained that there was nothing between them anyway, especially since she didn't like him anymore. And then, with some sarcasm, she suggested that this guy had just already fallen in love. Then she nevertheless tempered her ardor, explaining that it seemed to her that he really wanted to marry her and again asked to break off the engagement. The guy sighed heavily and admitted that he was tired of this nonsense and asked to postpone this conversation. He offered to continue preparations for the wedding, but this does not mean that he recognizes her as his wife. The girl was surprised, but Cha hoped that she understood his position, then asked her to leave because he had a meeting soon. Immediately, a guard came in, who began to pull her shoulders, but she continued to yell that she wanted to break off the engagement. She also suggested that he was kicking her out only because he had nothing to say in response. Shin Sarah, even in the corridor, continued to shout that she did not want to marry Cha Jae-young. Still, she was pushed out of the door, and as she walked along the sidewalk, she couldn't stop cursing him and calling him all the names she could. Han didn't understand what Shin Sarah had found in him, because he only had a pretty face, and everything else sucked. After all, she was born rich and there were many better options around, and then it suddenly dawned on her. Even if she is a villain now, if she continues to make better choices, she will be able to live differently than in the original drama. The girl did not see the rule by which she must die, but then she heard the screech of brakes near her. Han realized that death could overtake her anywhere and at any time, but she immediately pulled herself together. She also decided to tell this crazy driver how to behave behind the wheel. Coming closer, she began to demand that he come out and apologize because he almost hit her, and now he is hiding like a coward. The driver slowly lowered the tinted window and asked why she was attached to it. A young guy was sitting there and the girl even softened, and then more calmly explained that he almost hit a man. He did not understand what the problem was because she was not injured, then asked her to contact a lawyer if she wanted compensation for mental suffering. The guy handed her a business card, but did not wait for her to take it and simply threw it at her feet. This infuriated the girl and she hit the car of this reckless driver with all her foolishness, which amazed him. Then she poked her business card in his forehead and advised him to send the cost of the car door to the specified address. Turning around, Shin Sarah muttered that she had made an eye for an eye, and then cursed again. The girl went on her way, and the driver saw the name of the Seongwon company on the business card. The next day, Shin Sarah went to her office in a building with a huge number of floors. From a distance, she saw Aaron on the right floor, from which she immediately remembered her mother's words that she should thank him. The guy was carefully examining something on his phone when Sarah asked to give her a minute. She explained that nothing special had happened, she just wanted to apologize for last time. She also thanked him for taking her to the room when she lost consciousness, and also apologized for hitting him that day. Aaron reminded her that he had asked her not to try to do anything funny, but apparently she had misunderstood something. He explained that there was a CCTV camera, and he could not pass by the person who collapsed in front of him. He also asked Shin Sarah not to think that she had caught him in anything, and not to be mistaken in her conclusions. Then Aaron left, and the girl thought that she needed to improve a lot of things. The situation was now very clear to her. She was bullying men. Even the secretary could not look into her eyes. She realized this when he came to inform her that she had nothing planned for today. The girl also realized that she was not properly given work reports and details of meetings. In addition, she was discussed everywhere, and today people did not understand why she came here if there was no work. Han understood these people very well, because if she had a boss like Shin Sarah, she would bite her ass. She was also that these people cared that she ate alone, as if they had nothing else to do. A man in a suit approached Kay and reported that all messages had been deleted, and she thanked her for the information. But then she realized that it was Director Peck and apologized, explaining that she did not remember much after she lost consciousness. The man asked her not to apologize, and if she needed anything, she should boldly turn to him. Director Peck was the leader of the group and a friend of Chairman Shin, and when he approached Sarah, he warned her to be more restrained. The girl understood this and decided that she would try to be quieter than water and lower than the grass, although she had accumulated a lot of things. Then she was informed of the arrival of a guest, which surprised Shin Sarah, because the secretary had already said that there were no meetings today. He explained that this was an unplanned guest and he asked for a conversation, then the vice president asked to let him in. She wondered who it could be, and then she saw the same driver, thinking that it was worth driving him away immediately. She immediately asked why he was stuck, and he reminded him that she had given him a business card so that he could come to her. Shin Sarah remembered his door and asked him to contact the secretary with it, because she had a lot to do. But the guy explained that she would not get off just like that, and admitted that he had come to look at the face of Vice President Shin Sarah. Also this time he wanted to give her his business card properly, and then politely asked to take it. The girl took the paper and saw that his name was Cho Jong-won, and she had very sad memories of him. Han remembers how he kept Shin Sarah tied up and interrogated why she didn't want to just give up. This man kidnapped Sarah simply out of selfish desire and curiosity as a vile pervert. However, if everything was as in the original, then she would meet him only at an engagement many years later. Cho noticed that her face turned pale as if she had seen a ghost, but she was just pondering the situation. She understood that his temper could ruin everything, and she needed to get rid of him anyway. Shinsera then asked him to contact the secretary again because she was fully loaded with work. But the guy politely retorted that she shouldn't treat him like that by kicking him out now. Then he showed a flash drive and explained that he had everything recorded on the DVR. The way she insulted him and how she left a few dents on his car, despite the fact that she has a great reputation. The guy threatened that he could write something into this reputation, but she suddenly wondered what good he himself had done. Shinsera recalled that he did not see the color of the traffic light and drove through a pedestrian crossing, which is considered a violation. She also assured that his violation was recorded on a traffic camera, and she did not understand why he was so confident. Then the girl asked to see his video, but the young man immediately pulled his hand back. Shinsera reached for her and he began to command over her like a child teasing a toy. The girl got angry, realizing that he had come to threaten her, but Joe only repeated again that he wanted to see her face. He also assured that they would now see each other often, so he introduced himself to her. After that, the guy began to say goodbye, explaining that he still had a meeting planned and noted that it was fun to visit here. Shinsera began to yell after him that he was bluffing and demanded that he give her the recorder immediately. Then she noticed the secretary's trembling look, and realizing that now there would be rumors again, she asked him to return to work. The girl did not understand what was wrong with her. For some reason she began to start up and reproached herself for marking his car. Shinsera knew that Director Peck would come again and frown at her, and then she received a message. Lee Sung-kyung wrote to her, who was worried about the vice president, and asked to know if everything was all right. After a while, these girls met, and Lee immediately began to ask why Shinsera did not answer her and did not write to her. She thought that she was just very bad, but now she realized from her face that it was much better. Lee Sung-kyung is the perfect heroine. Everyone's favorite, she is also kind, beautiful, and very sweet. But Shin's hatred for her had no bounds, and it eventually grew into murderous intentions. Han decided that from now on she would become friends with Song-kyung, because this way she would have a chance to avoid death in the end. The girls went to a cafe with a magnificent garden, and there, Shinsera confirmed that she had partially lost her memory. Now Lee understood why she did not answer either calls or letters, and previously she thought that she simply forgot. She then asked that whatever Shin was doing, that she would always answer her because she was worried. Lee recalled that they have been friends for 10 years and the vice president thanked her for her care. At this moment, more girls were passing by who noticed Song-kyung and decided to come over to say hello to her. Shinsera thought they were friends too, but she couldn't remember them yet, and they asked to sit down. Lee was a little embarrassed. It was immediately clear from her reaction that they did not have friendly relations. Han still didn't want to worry for no reason and hoped that Song-kyung would be able to stand up for herself. Lee kindly invited these girls to sit down, and she was about to sit down with Shinsera. The vice president didn't leave because she wanted to hear about their business, even though she didn't feel comfortable. They began to discuss Lee's new brand and also advised her to relax and go on a date. One of them suddenly said that dating was tiring and it was necessary not to date, but to get married immediately. Song-kyung objected because a wedding is a serious step. Then her friends assured that everything would be fine with her beauty and cuteness. They then wondered if Song wanted to meet someone, and then they remembered that her boyfriend had returned to Korea. The conversation of these rich girls seemed very stuffy to Han, and she thought of just leaving, explaining that she was very busy. Suddenly, Lee said that compared to her, Shinsera is much more beautiful, as well as a kind and sweet girl. Sun then explained that there had been a misunderstanding between them before, especially since Sarah now had amnesia. Lee asked her friends not to talk about what Shinsera did not remember, and they did not object, making a sympathetic appearance. Then they began to discuss her makeup, believing that if there is a lot of it, then it does not look very pretty. But Lee was even jealous of her sister, because she is not a celebrity, but she dresses flashy and is very confident. After chatting for a while, the girls began to say goodbye, and Sung-kyung reminded Sarah that they had been invited to the party. In honor of the opening of the Rome Group store, it will be this week, and Lee advised to dress more beautifully. Other friends who had not yet left said that they were going shopping, and Sun asked to come with them. As they left, they discussed that Shin's amnesia was fake, but Lee insisted that her friend was indeed ill. Shinsera also heard that these girls intervened because they thought that the vice president wanted to do her some kind of harm again. At home, Han understood that Sarah's memories were very fragmentary and scarce, and she didn't remember anything until today's conversation. Then fragments surfaced of how at one of the parties she scolded Song-kyung for saying something to Cha-jun. Lee's friend stood up for her, claiming that she was not guilty of anything, and Sarah simply did not get along with her fiancé herself. And the frightened son began to make excuses that she was just interested in his affairs, but Shinsera did not believe her. She was sure that Lee was just trying to make a fool of her once again and began to threaten that he would kill her. Still, the guard stopped her before the irreparable happened, and now the girl felt a strong shame. She decided that the next time she met Lee, she would apologize to her for this, although she might not accept the apology. Perhaps that was why Sun was so cold, although Sarah hoped that this time they would get along. The girl did not understand why, from the moment she died and was resurrected, there was no one who would treat her well. A few days passed, and Shinsera was picking up a dress for the party, but realized that she had already worn them all. She also couldn't get through to Jae-young and was angry that he didn't answer, and her negativity was noticed again by those around her. Cha promised her that he would come for her himself, but in the end he sent a car for her, and they met at the entrance to the party. Shinsera didn't understand why they couldn't come in the same car, but the guy didn't say anything in response, which also her off. And as soon as they stepped inside, Cha immediately decided to leave her, as if she were just his ticket to enter the party. Sarah did not understand his behavior because this idiot simply decided to leave his bride in splendid loneliness. Nevertheless, she realized that it was the first time she had been at such a party and did not understand what to do here alone. She hoped to hold out for at least an hour and decided to go to the buffet and look at the phone. But then, unexpectedly, the same Jong-won, whom she definitely did not expect to see, appeared in front of her. The guy explained that he was an invited guest here and then complimented her on her appearance. The girl decided to warn that if he decided to quarrel with her, then he had better go his own way. Cho asked not to be angry, it just seemed to him that she was hungry and wanted to offer to eat together. Shin wanted to verbally push him away, but at that moment, Lee Sung came over and rejoiced at her friend's arrival. Sung Kyung was also surprised that Sarah knew Cho, and she explained that they had one working meeting. Shinsera then decided to sneak away from them in a polite way, asking them to talk for the time being, and went the other way. Lee then asked Cho what they had talked about with the vice president, but he explained that they had only said hello. Sarah, meanwhile, did not understand why this guy approached her, because according to the drama, he was soon engaged to Sung Kyung. She also knew that it was all because she had been abandoned by Cha Jae-young, and then she noticed Ajaran Lee Roan among the guests. This wasn't surprising, since all of Headmaster Seong-won should be here, but Han felt like she didn't need to be here. Then she decided that she was not needed here at all, and the environment was such that even in the original, it would not have changed. Shin Saru was not recognized as either vice president or fiancé. Perhaps that is why she refused her role and disappeared. Han would also like to do so, and now, after an hour, the girl decided to leave this event. As she was leaving, some guy caught up with her who immediately pushed her and started yelling that it was all because of her. Sarah did not understand what she was guilty of, and other people began to look back at this quarrel, not understanding who this man was. Cho, who was with Lee in the farthest corner, realized that something had happened and the man had already been grabbed by the guards. They began to drag him to the exit, and he kept yelling that Shin had brought his child to a very deplorable state. Cha also heard the commotion and even got angry, not understanding how much more this woman would get on his nerves. When he squeezed between the rest of the guests, he saw that his bride was sitting on the floor and crying. Song Kyung also ran up to her and began to apologize for causing such an unpleasantness. She admitted that she herself let that man in because he wanted to say something to Sarah, and claimed that it was nonsense. Shinsera wiped her mouth with her hand, and Lee noticed that she was bleeding, but she only angrily demanded that she shut up. Then she got up, and all like a wet chicken went to the exit. She didn't even care at that moment what the others thought. People really began to discuss the situation, not understanding what the vice president could do to the daughter of that man. Although she is known for her bad temper, and because of it, Sungwon is a complete mess. Shin thought about her mistake and remembered her promise to be quieter than water and lower than grass. In the original, Shinsera, due to the fact that she was never accepted, refused her role and disappeared, Han also wanted it so much. She would just try to avoid such a situation with carefree thoughts, and then she saw Director Peck by the car. He also immediately recognized her. He offered to leave as soon as possible, and the girl immediately dived into his car. The director was about to take her to the hospital, but Sarah objected, asking him to just take her home. Peck was also the chief secretary, and Shin explained to him that she had been attacked by a man and asked him to investigate. The director was surprised that the vice president really did not remember and said that the other day she got a lot of stress at work. Then there was an incident with an employee of a security company, and Shin treated her cruelly. And that man is her father. His daughter fell into a coma after she tried to commit suicide. At the same time, the incident was not recognized as a deliberate accident, and Peck, as a father, cannot condemn the man. He also decided that he would not sit back and ignore the incident. She wanted to gather lawyers to take legal action. Shin Sara asked not to do this, and to find a way to compensate for that case. She is even ready to kneel down to apologize. The girl began to ask the chief secretary to come to the agreement that the victim wanted. Then Sarah added that if there were such incidents, then she wants to pay compensation to absolutely everyone. From Peck's embarrassed face, the girl realized that such cases really happened and asked to tell me because she did not remember anything. She did not know how many times she would have to unconsciously experience resentment and suffer retribution, or suffer like today. For a while, she lost her sense of reality due to an incredible situation, as if she was trapped in a drama. Han no longer wanted to live like this fool, and for her, the world is no longer a drama, but a reality that is also like a gutter. A little later, Shin Saru's office was asked to explain why she had made this decision, but she clearly stated the reason. The girl thought that the position was perfect for a manager. Besides, the chairman had already approved everything. The employee immediately apologized to the vice president for his rudeness, but she only chuckled in response. She then showed and turned on a recording on her phone that said she was born with a gold spoon in her mouth. Even when the company was failing, the chairman for some reason decided to make her vice president, although she has no brains. The manager was talking about Sarah in the break room right in front of her nose, as if he was enjoying a busy working life. He began to make excuses that he didn't mean it, but Shin pointed out that there was nothing incomprehensible in the conversation. However, if he helps with the settlement of the schedule, then she will consider deleting this entry and reconsidering the appointment. From now on, all work must go through it and the manager must inform it, and its name will be added to the results. The girl has long thought that reorganization is necessary because most of the directors have an advantageous position. Therefore, you need to delve into the circumstances of the company, and it must regain its status. Although Han knew that it wasn't that easy, her head was aching because everything was different from what she had done before. But in addition to work, she had another important unresolved case, Lee Sung-kyung. The girl realized that at that party, Lee was responsible for the visitors, and it seemed that she deliberately invited an intruder. However, Song immediately apologized, as if her intentions were pure, but Shin Sara was still defeated by her. Han couldn't believe that she had suffered such stupid retribution, which can only be seen in dramas. She went to the kitchen to drink coffee, and there she was noticed by the boy Lee Rong, who also saw the band-aids on her arm. He realized that she had been bruised at that party and immediately remembered how he had planned to go see what had happened. Then Roan noticed how her so-called fiancé was staring at her, and he did not understand why they had come separately. He was also that Cha was just standing there and watching, and he didn't understand why this pathetic bastard couldn't protect his fiancée. But he also understood that if he approached himself, they could quarrel again. Ron then asked Secretary Peck to drive the car to the main entrance, explaining that Shin Sara was in trouble. Now the girl saw him and decided that he also wanted to drink coffee, even offered to pour him a drink. But then she changed her mind so that he wouldn't think she had put any poison in there. She started to leave the kitchen, and Roan suddenly asked if she was okay, which was a little unexpected for Sarah. In addition, she thought again, but then she understood the question and said that everything was fine with her, and she had even gone to the hospital. Wishing her brother a pleasant drink of coffee, the girl immediately went back to her room and locked herself there. Sarah did not understand why Roan did this, because she was sure that he would somehow comment on her condition. Then the tears came to her eyes again, though she didn't know why, because she shouldn't care. The next day, at a meeting, Shin and other directors discussed matters in the coal business. The declaration was cancelled as it was a short-term profit issue and there were problems with business partners. Sarah still did not see significant action on their part and demanded that this case be completed this year. She also asked to check the information on each person, after which she was going to talk to the accounting department. The secretary reported to her that in recent days the company's rating had risen, and she explained that this was thanks to his help. Peck still objected, arguing that success was achieved only thanks to Shin Sara's powers. He then admitted that the chairman had asked about her, which surprised the girl, even though he was also her father. Even when they crossed paths at work, Chairman Shin ignored her, and sometimes it seemed to her that they didn't even live in the same house. This person had simply never stepped out of his own space, but now she was stunned. Later, she confessed to the secretary that she had also been questioned about the affairs and condition of director Lee Rong. After all, she thought that he would just get angry with her and demand that she not cause him any more trouble. Peck knew that there was a strange relationship between them, but decided that Shin Sera should know something. He admitted that it was Roan who called him that day, asking him to drive up and pick up Vice President Shin. Peck didn't ask him why because the guy wasn't in the best of moods himself. It's just that Sarah was in trouble back then and clearly needed help, so Lee Rong called him. Now the girl understood why Secretary Peck had arrived so on time. Apparently Aaron was really worried about her. However, when she tried to escape, he scolded her, and it was difficult for Sarah to understand why this guy was behaving like this. A little later, she finished with some things, and there was still a financial report ahead. In fact, Han hated to work, because in order to keep up with the schedule, she had to go to work early in the morning. She decided to go for a little snack, and in the hall she noticed a man sitting separately, who just called out to her. The man greeted her and asked how she was doing lately, and Sarah asked him to introduce himself. The man realized that the vice president had indeed lost her memory, and admitted that he was one of the 8 immortals. Han began to remember that in dramas, all managers at least once ask witches about the success of their business. The man also noticed that the girl's spirit had changed, and she jokingly asked if her fate would change in the future. Shin Sera didn't like that he didn't shut up, because she really wanted to go eat. The man admitted that he could not predict her life as a vice president, and then she decided to say goodbye to him. In the evening, Sarah came home and was glad that she did not have to work at night. She wanted to wash and take pills. However, as soon as she crossed the threshold of the room, she saw Roan's motionless body on the floor. Shin immediately rushed to him, not understanding what was wrong with him but hoping that he was okay, and tried to call him. But Aaron did not come to his senses, and Sarah did not know whether to call an ambulance because she could not wake Sun and the butler was already gone. Then the girl decided to drag him to her room, where with great effort she laid him on the bed. After a while, the guy woke up and Sarah immediately gave him the necessary pills, advising him to eat porridge first. She also told him that he was lying in front of her front door, and she helped him and carried him to her room. She also called Professor Kim back, and he admitted that Roan was very tired and often lost consciousness because of this. Aaron looked suspiciously at the porridge his sister was offering and asked if she had cooked it. The girl explained that it is just rice porridge, as it is best for the stomach. The guy still found it strange that she knew how to cook, and she explained that she did it for the first time after finding the recipe on the internet. Han understood that the original Sarah did not know how to cook because people like her just order food from the chef. Roan slowly brought the spoon to his mouth, but made it clear to his sister that she did not need to watch him, and she agreed to leave. Already outside the door, Han caught herself just liking the way he eats cute and thought that this was crazy. The girl thought that it was because of fatigue that all sorts of stupid thoughts crept into her and decided to go to bed as soon as possible. Once her mother's son later asked to go to a VIP party, explaining that you can't work so hard all the time. Sarah didn't want to go and suggested that Roan go, but he was on a business trip, and Shin Sera was the only one who could represent Seong-won. In addition, the mother heard rumors that everything has become great in the company now, which means that the girl is doing well. She understood that her mother was right, and in order to strengthen her position, she needed to manage affairs outside the company. And then the girl suddenly thought that she could try, since she had already come to this point and agreed to go. A little later, she thanked Cha Jae-yong for writing her in, realizing that he had a different schedule. She also warned him that he would not be able to go wherever his eyes looked, and they would stay together, since they came together. She also asked him to make his face simpler and he just needed to behave like her partner. He agreed, but realized that since she was asking to become her partner again, she would no longer demand the termination of the engagement. The girl only asked him to think for himself, realizing how excited he was, although she knew that everything was done with him. There they met a man who noticed that the two looked even more beautiful than they were described, and Sarah congratulated this gentleman on the opening of the exhibition, noting that the inside is as beautiful as the outside. He explained that there would be a cocktail show in the afternoon and hoped that these guests would like it. The girl quietly pushed the groom to confirm that they liked to be here together. She also did not understand why he looked like this, as if it was difficult for him to walk with a forced smile. He objected, but he did not think that his bride could be so sociable. He had never seen her like this before. Then one girl came up and modestly greeted Sarah, and Han recognized her. She was Song Kyung's quietest friend. However, she did not know her name, and she admitted that she had tried to contact Sarah, but she had no contact. Later, she wanted to ask Song Kyung, but since Shin Sera had come, she decided to ask her now. The stranger then explained that they had a meeting on Saturday and hoped that the vice president would show up as well. Sarah realized that this was another meeting of rich girls and agreed to come, asking for her contacts. She also noticed that this girl had treated her much better than the others, and it seemed that her intentions were transparent and pure. Sarah had hoped that this would make things work out now, and at this party, she felt that her reputation was changing. Shin Sarah used to be the disgrace of the Seongwon group, a crazy woman who was abandoned even by her fiancé. But now she walks with Cha Jae arm in arm, a confident smile shining on her face, and it seems that early assessments of her reputation were just rumors. However, after a heavy love quarrel, they got back together with the groom and the girl felt that she was really cool. Instead of clarifying every rumor, she thought it was best to show everything in person. She also reminded the gentleman that he really needed to continue to hold her hand. At the same time, he does not need to make any special movements, but just show everyone what kind of love they have. Then, Sarah noticed Sung Kyung and realized that she just couldn't help but show up at such a party. They greeted each other and Lee admitted that she had heard a lot about Cha Jae-young, and then introduced herself to him as a close friend of Sarah. Sun noticed Shin Sarah's strange expression and decided that she didn't like the way she spoke and immediately apologized. Then the friend asked how her wounds were, hoping that it was better, and again apologized for that day, adding that she was very worried. Song Kyung assured that she did not expect that man to do this because he looked very kind. She also immediately called the doctor, but Sarah had already managed to leave and Lee thought that her friend was angry with her, so she did not call. Sarah got a little tired of this chatter and explained in a polite way that she had been talking about something with Cha Jae-young. After that, she went with him in the other direction before asking her friend to text her later. She also explained that she does not answer calls not only from Lee, she is just very busy at work and has no time to talk. Han then thought that she had gotten into the habit of saying this and had done her best, but it was her mistake. Cha wondered if it was the daughter of the chairman of the Roan group, realizing that they were good friends. Sarah confirmed that they are friends, but also admitted that she feels awkward around this girl. Then she asked not to pay attention because what happened at the party was Lee's oversight, and his image would not suffer from it. The guy remembered how he thought then that his fiancée only continued to get on his nerves, and was eager to see what had happened. At the same time, at that moment, he noticed a strange expression on Song Kyung's face, which made it impossible to tell if she was really excited, and if he understood everything correctly, then it was not a mistake. And that girl really hates Sarah. His fiancée at this time asked if he liked Song Kyung and even decided to introduce them, but he refused. Han knew that they should be doing well in the drama, but it was obvious that he was faking. They went to the second floor where Sarah liked it very much. It seemed to her more like a palace than an exhibition hall. Then she thanked Cha Jae because she thought that today she would have to go alone to this event. Although she assumed that in fact he just felt sorry for her because otherwise he has no conscience. Cha paid attention to her and noticed that there were still bruises on her shoulder from under her dress. However, he didn't say anything, and the girl suggested that we slowly go downstairs because the cocktail show was about to begin. Down in front of them was a man who slipped and Cha barely had time to grab him by the collar so that he wouldn't fall on them. Yen asked this person to be careful in front of the landing and he apologized. It's just that the floor is very slippery. Cha also asked the bride if she was hurt, and she assured that she was fine. At the same time, she noticed that her fiancé was very good at escorting, but she could not understand why he then left her at that party. Sarah also thanked him, realizing that in public it makes their relationship better. On the way back, the girl offered him to have dinner together, although she understood that such an offer was not attractive to him. Sarah explained that she wanted to discuss things they couldn't talk about before and clarified that she meant breaking off the engagement. They went to a restaurant where the girl decided to go straight to the point and asked what Cha wanted when he decided to marry her. She promised to give it to him, knowing that something had made him decide to get involved with a rude woman like her. She also knew that his company, Gumgang, was rootless, starting as a private credit business. Therefore, marital relations with her should be important to him, and for her personally, the engagement was only a whim. Still, the girl did not understand why Cha wanted to keep her engagement to Shin Sarah, whom she hated so much. Cha loves peace and power, but to strengthen his position, he created a subsidiary called Lumante. Lumante showed tremendous growth, absorbing Gumgang branches one after another. Sarah was obsessed with the grandson of the chairman of the Gyeomgang group, and everyone there promoted this marriage, considering it profitable. Shin Sarah suggested that he hand over the logical operations to Lumante now, which would be a good gift to break off the engagement. Cha Jae thought that this was not bad, but he understood that these were only fantasies that were not possible in reality. In addition, she is only the daughter of the chairman of the Sungwon group, and she does not have much influence within the company. She also beat Lee Ron herself by using this marriage because she herself lacks the skills that he possesses. Sarah realized that he thought she was trying to save face, and when something hit her, she strained not to explode. She explained to Yen that there was still a lack of trust between them, and therefore she believed that she would have to tell him something. She shared that the Sungwon audit team will soon conduct a fair trade diagnosis. This group is under the direct report of the chairman, and Lee Rong will not be able to do anything about it. After the verification, a tender will be held where Sarah will be able to give full support to Lamente, and recalled that she is the daughter of Chairman Shin. Therefore, Cha does not need to marry her. He will still be able to get an inheritance, and the surplus in business will be very large. Cha didn't argue, but he couldn't understand why she had begged him to marry her earlier, and now for some reason she had changed her mind. She gave a simple explanation that she simply didn't like him anymore, because until now he had ignored his fiancée and avoided her. He also had an inattentive and one-sided attitude and rude behavior just to save face. Because of his pride, Cha had always tried to get the better of Shin Sarah, so he argued persistently, and she didn't like that. After that, the girl offered to end the discussion if Jae Young was not interested in anything else. On Saturday, Sarah met with the quiet girl and thanked her for the invitation. It was a bit noisy here, and Han would have preferred a different atmosphere to meet her friends. Still, the people around looked happy, and the girls sat at the table where their friends were already waiting. It was their first planned meeting, but Sarah could see that they were still uncomfortable because they had gathered to strike up a friendship. Then Sung Kyung appeared with a few more friends, and Sarah immediately feigned joy that she had come to them. Han now knew what kind of person Song Kyung was. After all, she could easily read her expression, and she was not happy now. Lee really wondered why Sarah had come, reminding her that she was so busy that she couldn't even talk. Song Kyung also reminded that she really wanted to talk to her, but she did not pick up the phone when she called. Then she asked which of those present had contacted Sarah instead of her, but the girls only kept silent. And Shin Sarah admitted that she wanted to come, so she asked for the address herself, and she just wanted to unwind. Sarah wanted to accept the invitation directly from Lee, but realizes that Lee decided not to invite due to disrespect for her work. She also explained that it became calmer at work, and the problem with her short-term memory loss was also solved. Shin Sarah explained to the others that it was due to overexertion at work. She then lost consciousness and hit her head hard. She did not even recognize her mother immediately and was on outpatient treatment for several days, but now everything is fine. In addition, there is a Secretary Peck and Lee Rang, and there are a lot of people around who are sorry to help her. Sung Kyung suddenly admitted that she didn't know about her friendship with Lee Ro because at a private party they quarreled when he went after Sarah. Someone remembered that this was the party when Song Kyung was almost stabbed, and as it turned out, not everyone knew about it. Lee Song immediately put on a guilty face, but expressed her joy that Sarah was doing well with Aaron now. In addition, at the opening of the gallery, she saw that her relationship with Cha Jae-young had been restored. Song Kyung also noticed that Sarah really quickly finds a common language with men, and she only smiled back. She just didn't remember having a bad relationship with Roan or Cha, rather the opposite, because her brother sent a car to pick her up when there was an incident. They are quite close, they just sometimes argue in public places, but they come home and reconcile because they live under the same roof. However, if Shin Sarah had known that someone was so interested in her life, she would have been more careful. In any case, her quarrels with Roan are like a brother and sister fight, and with Cha they are like all cute. When they fight, they only have fun. The quiet girl admitted that it was difficult for her to imagine that they did not get along, because she saw Sarah's fiancé live, considering him calm and kind. Sarah agrees that Cha is a peaceful person and he never raises his voice, even when he is fighting. She also admitted that her fiancé was very handsome, and she was pleased that he was given such compliments. Han wanted to show that earlier conversations led by Song Kyung contributed to Sarah's bad reputation, and when the sensitive Sarah argued with her, it seemed from the outside that only Song Kyung was telling the truth. As a result, the vice president was subjected to the wrong criticism, and now she asked Lee to talk about her affairs. She hesitated a little, but Sarah wanted to hear about her boyfriend, who had already returned, clarifying that it was director Cho Jung-won. Some girls did not know that Lee Sung was dating, and Sarah added that this is the director of the company that is now cooperating with Seong-won. Shin Sarah admitted that they had been talking recently and noticed that Song Kyung's two friends had fallen silent. But one still asked her impression, and she began to describe his appearance, focusing on his attractiveness. Suddenly, Sung Kyung announced that he was her fiancé. She just kept it a secret so that she could invite her friends to the engagement party later. She then admitted that she was very ashamed that her personal life had been found out in this way. Sarah was even surprised, and Lee continued to be embarrassed, explaining that her friends would have found out anyway. And then she said that she was already used to the fact that Vice President Shin Sera speaks without hesitation. After the meeting, the girl returned home and felt damn tired from all this talking. The purpose of her meeting was to broaden her horizons and improve her image, but then everything turned into a fight with Lee Sung-kyung. Still, she was having fun, because for the first time she had a warm relationship that she could call friendly. Sarah realized that she might have gone too far. Just the wine turned out to be too tasty and she drank too much. This affected not only her behavior in the evening, now she stumbled due to intoxication and she had to count the steps. In addition, there was a sharp corner of the step right in front of her forehead, and she barely had time to prop herself up with her hand. Han knew that she had always gotten into trouble when she drank too much, and now she didn't even have a heart attack, but she almost died. For some time she remained lying on the steps, thinking about the meaning of life, and her brothers saw her in this position. He was curious why she was lying there, but then he realized that she was just having fun in the evening. Roan called to his sister, but she only began to mumble, waving her fingers at him as drunken girls usually do. Then she wondered why there were so many stairs in the house and realized that it would take her time to get to her room. The guy was now only convinced that she had drunk more than she needed, and she, a little stammering and hiccuping, did not deny it. Ron immediately picked her up to drag her into the room, because if the chairman and his wife saw her, he would be scolded. Sarah explained that she gets drunk when she is nervous, but she did not understand why she was scolding her brother and not her. In addition, Aaron hates her, and the chairman is supportive of him. Nevertheless, he says some nonsense. Somehow, the guy dragged his sister to the door of her room and she, barely standing on her feet, tried to say something to him. He did not understand her drunken muttering, and then she tried to explain that he should drag her all the way to the bed. Sarah admitted that she was very sleepy and could pass out right there on the floor. Aaron accepted her request and threw her carcass on the bed like a sack of potatoes, hoping that she would leave it alone. But she suddenly grabbed him by the arm and pulled him so close to her that he began to have completely wrong thoughts. But Shin Sera wondered how close he was to Lee Sung-kyung, who pretended to know him well at the meeting. The guy admitted that he only knew her face, but had never spoken to her, which seemed surprising to Sarah. After all, Lee claimed to know him well, and then Shin Sera muttered that she knew everything, and this puzzled Arrow. He asked his sister to explain what she meant, but realized that she would be of no use today. A few days later, Lee Ji-young, who was supposed to help the vice president in the future, came to Sarah. Sarah explained that she would have to do mostly secretarial work and suggested that she get along well. The girl was happy that she got a good assistant, and from that moment her work begins very seriously. However, there will be several months of great stress because even a lazy, evil hero needs to go through a lot to get freedom. Sarah broke off her engagement to Cha Jung-young, but now for the safety of the inner territory, it is necessary to keep Roan under control. Suddenly, Cho Jung-won appeared in front of her, noticing that she was drinking coffee from a can and not like everything freshly brewed. The girl considered him a time bomb and decided that it was better to ignore him in order to exclude him from her life. He admitted that he could not see her in the office and realized that she deliberately avoided him. Suddenly he remembered that she had hurt herself at the party, and now he asked how she felt, admitting that he was worried. And Sarah noticed that he was Lee Sung-kyung's fiancé for a reason, because they even have the same way of speaking, but she thanked him for his care. Then Sarah said that she was not so hurt to worry about it, and asked him to forget about it. The girl was about to leave, but suddenly he grabbed her by the shoulder, which frightened her. Cho wanted to know why she was avoiding him, but Sarah, thinking it was because of the car, reminded him to contact her secretary. Young-won explained that he did not need a secretary at all, and he had a business specifically with her and immediately offered to go on a date with him. The girl did not understand what kind of jump it was, and he admitted that he liked her very much and offered to take her for a ride in a car. Shin Sera even thought about it, she just didn't know how to react to all this, but she said that she didn't like him from the first time they met. In addition, she is engaged and spends every day with her fiancé, and she has no reason to meet other men. The vice president also heard that he is engaged to Lee Sung-kyung, and she is not going on a date with her friend's fiancé. Sarah is not going to do anything that might hurt her friend and asked Cho to stop thinking about dating. The girl went to her office, and he was left confused because it was news to him that he was engaged to Lee Sung-kyung. After a while, Sarah met with Roan, and the meeting place seemed very beautiful to her, and she was also glad that her brother agreed to come. A little earlier, she noticed how he was going to go to lunch and offered to go to a restaurant together since he was already tired of the dining room. The employees who saw this could not even believe their eyes because they were going to lunch together for the first time. At the table, the guy thought a little, and Sarah asked what he was so worried about, but he did not admit it. He only explained that he thought that his sister liked Korean food, and she explained that after the injury, her tastes had changed a little. Shin knew it was unexpected for him because Sarah hadn't liked Korean food before. Rowan admitted it. But it also seemed strange to him that he was now dining with her and admitted that it hadn't happened before. The guy suddenly remembered how earlier, when his own mother was drinking, she saw how Aaron returned late from somewhere. The guy explained to her that he went to a part-time job, but she did not understand where she could work at such an age. His mother believed that her Aaron was lying and that he was making excuses so as not to return. She thought that he just wanted to leave her just like his father, while also laughing at his mother. She herself gave up everything to raise him alone, and if he did not exist, then her life would become more lousy. Then she threw a bottle at him, but the guy managed to hide behind the door, and she screamed, asking why he did not listen to her. After a while, his mother passed away. He heard that she was an unknown actress and did not know who his father was. When they began to rent an apartment, the neighbors saw only this child and his mother, but she left, and now he is left alone. People felt sorry for this boy, who was still in school, and his mother left him only a farewell letter. In it, she apologized for hiding the truth and admitted that his father, the chairman of the Seongwon group, was Young Il-tae. She could not tell him right away, because she was afraid that he would leave her, and now asked him to return everything that belonged to him. After that, Aaron went to Chairman Seongwon, showed him his mother's letter, and told him everything. Chairman Shin asked this kid to raise his head. He believed him, because he looked a lot like Young Il-tae. Thus, the guy's life changed, and he was immediately taken to a huge house where he was to live. Roan was glad that after the death of the guy, the chairman did not drive him away but welcomed him. Now he even drove a foreign car, which he had never seen before, and he had his own personal security. The mansion was just huge, that it was not clear where this property began and where it ended. He was then introduced to Chairman Shin's family, and it all turned his life upside down. Sun scolded her husband that Chairman Jong once repaired his son, and now he is trying to resurrect him in this way. Shin asked his wife to be careful in his expressions because he had thought everything over, but his wife did not agree with him. She demanded that if he wanted to do charity work, he should have Principal Peck look after the child. Sun didn't understand why he would bring this guy to the house where their daughter lived, but Shin didn't see the problem because they had many rooms. His wife, however, was not happy that as soon as Roan's mother died, he was immediately brought into their lives. She considered the guy to be adult and toxic and believed that they could have problems from this. But Shin understood that everyone knew that he was the son of Chairman Jong, so there would be no problems with receiving the inheritance. The wife only continued to argue that she did not even think to consult with her, and that was the problem. Shin again asked her to stop the argument, not to make a fuss in front of the children, and to calm down herself. This perplexed Sun, because her husband considered this foundling to be his son, and now he attributes it to her. Over time, everything calmed down a little and Iron studied well at school, which the chairman liked. Shin also asked the guy not to hesitate to ask if he needed something for his studies, and asked his daughter to follow Roan's example. However, it was difficult for Shinsera, because she looked very much like her mother, beautiful but silly, and her mother grumbled about such words. Chairman Shin's house seemed spacious and clean to Aaron, and everything was shiny and very quiet. This house was very different from where he used to live with his mother, and he knew that he did not belong here, but he wanted to be here. After all, if he lived here forever, then no one would find it strange that he would spend time with the Shin family. Then Roan would become a person who was very similar to them. He would become a high-level person. After some time, the guy received a message that he had passed an interview for the reception of new employees. Shin found out about it, but he wasn't angry. He just couldn't believe that he was trying so hard behind his back and not saying anything. Roan apologized for not saying he had previously joined the company. He was just worried that he might not be suitable. But the chairman considered it even commendable because the guy did everything himself, not relying on anyone. Afterward, Shin asked him to work hard in the future and admitted that he was proud of his act. At this point, when Aaron's efforts were acknowledged, he forgot about his situation and felt that he belonged to the Shin family. He is now a member of Chairman Shin's family, who is not ashamed of taking him in. But in addition, some difficulties began to arise with Shinsera, who hated him from the first days. And when it came time to become vice president, this girl made a real scandal for him, saying that this was not his place. Then she even beat him very badly and shouted that she would get back everything, no matter what it cost her. The sulfur was so brutal that she grabbed a chair and was about to kill the named brother, but he suddenly grabbed her and threw the chair away. He asked her to stop and explained that there was nothing good in her actions, but she continued to fight him. The girl kept saying that Roan was the same as his mother and stated that she should have gotten rid of him earlier. At this moment, Dream entered the room, who became agitated when she saw this scene and demanded an explanation. She understood that her daughter had decided to arrange a showdown, but so far she had only ordered the servant to clean everything here. And then she looked at Roan, who was bleeding from the wounds on his face, and made it clear that it was just a trifle to him. Then she began to ask her daughter why she was throwing things at the wall, paying no more attention to Ron. The guy was well aware that the chairman's wife also hated him, but he could not do anything about it. He did well at work, and he often received praise from Chairman Shin. But one day, Shin decided to ask Iran if he was interested in his daughter, noticing his bandaged hand. In the evening, Roan returned to this spacious and clean house as usual, but as in that cramped apartment, his space was limited. All of these memories now flashed before his eyes as he dined with Shinsera, who noticed that he wasn't eating anything. The guy explained that he had just finished lunch, and his sister was pleased that they managed to escape to eat normally. She also admitted that while sitting in the office, she began to notice something, but this surprised Roan very much. After all, she had never noticed anything until now. But Sarah immediately corrected herself that she blurted out without thinking. Then she suggested that we go back, but it seemed that Aaron was in no hurry to follow her. In fact, the girl invited him to have lunch together to see if there was any estrangement between them. It seemed that Roan did not pay much attention to this and even felt sorry for him, but now it was time to act. Li Ji then brought her the documents, and the vice president praised the assistant for her good work. Now she could trust Ji Young, who had provided information as to why Li Rong had continued to work despite the pain. Sungwon's audit team has announced a fair tender, and Royan plans to support Iris's company. He wanted to use it as a shield in the fight for succession at the auction that would take place after the inspection. It is important that at the same time there was an exchange of bribes, and even the audit team will not be able to ignore such a level. Now that she's got this information to go, Shinsera is about to start the real work. However, a few days later, the girl realized that there would definitely be some trouble on the smooth path. At the meeting, it was provided in writing about the introduction of new modeling methods in the trading process. These innovations were provided by Cho Jong-won and was going to make his proposals at the meeting. He explained that Sungwon Products currently leaves the discount amount to the discretion of the responsible person, but if they apply artificial intelligence modeling techniques, then everything will become easier. At the same time, during the meeting, Cho constantly stared at Shinsera, which infuriated her greatly, but she controlled herself. After the meeting, she grumbled under her breath that he had burned a hole in her face, and there were so many people there. However, for some reason, this guy paid attention only to her, and now he suddenly caught up with her in the corridor. Sarah could hardly restrain herself from cutting into him, and he began to ask to talk to her alone. He did not understand why she was avoiding him even now, and she reminded him that she did not want any contact with him outside of work. Sarah explained that this was the first and last time and asked him to quickly say what he needed. He again offered her to go on a date with him, drive a car, and eat a delicious meal. The girl did not understand how he was able to repeat the same thing without a single mistake, and reminded her answer that she did not like him. In addition, she now has a busy schedule and is very busy, so she is just tired of fighting with him. Cho suddenly began to mumble that she went apologizing here and there, also correcting her mistakes. The girl did not understand what he meant, and he explained that he also wanted compensation for the broken door. Sarah more angrily reminded him to go to the secretary, only Cho did not agree with such an offer. He asked her to talk to him after work, after which he agreed to give her the dashcam. On the way to the office, Sarah cursed him in her mind, realizing that because of him, she would have to work overtime at home and wait for a call. And at the end of the working day, when she went down to the parking lot, this stubborn man was already waiting for her there and invited her to sit down in the car. But then she noticed that this was not the car over which she had poured out her emotions. Cho admitted that he bought a new one, explaining that Sarah herself wanted to buy him a car, and he loves to drive only beautiful ones. Then he also explained that he would give her the dashcam if the vice president went with him. They walked to the park on a small bridge. The view was just gorgeous, just as Cho had promised. Then he explained that there is a restaurant right next to the observatory, which is not crowded today since it is a weekday. Sarah also noticed that there were no people in this place except them, and Jung-won noticed that she was a little confused by this. The girl did not understand why people are so curious if she is just trying to live her life. She also began to list everything she wanted to do while yelling, which made Cho watch her in surprise. Sarah continued that no matter how she lives, this is her life, and she does not understand why people are so interested in someone else's life. Then she calmed down a little, took a deep breath, and began to laugh hysterically, explaining that she had relieved all the stress. Cho still continued to stare at her in bewilderment, not understanding what had just happened, and she explained that she had just shouted. Now she feels like $1,000,000 and admitted that this place is really good. Then, as if nothing had happened, Sarah asked where the restaurant Cho was talking about and reminded him of the receptionist. Looking at her diverse behavior, Young-won realized that she was having a lot of fun with and realized that he couldn't just give up. The restaurant turned out to be very cozy, and at first the girl asked to bring them 2 glasses of water. Cho decided that she did not like alcohol, but she explained that they came by car and it would not be good to get into an accident later. The guy admitted that he had forgotten about it. It just seemed to him that it would be fun to drink with Sarah. She still did not understand why she should drink with him, because they were having dinner together for the first and last time. She is not going to date him again for personal reasons, and she had to do it only because of the dashcam. But Cho wondered if they would be able to meet again if something similar suddenly happened. At the same time, Sarah understood that everything did not start very well, but he brought her to the restaurant and she screamed from the heart. The girl even thanked him for having a good time, but Young-won noticed that she was very cruel. He knew it from the first time they met when she kicked his car, but he was still surprised when he heard her screaming on the bridge. Sarah admitted that sometimes it is difficult for her to understand herself, and there are moments when she doubts. After dinner, Sarah was about to leave. Cho offered her a ride back, but she refused. The vice president was about to call her driver when they both heard a familiar voice. In front of them stood a surprised and resentful Lee Sung-kyung, who couldn't understand why Cho was there with Sarah. Sarah herself felt as if Lee had caught this guy cheating, and she began to interrogate whether they had drunk together. The vice president immediately began to deny it, not understanding why she was saying this, and Cho suddenly said that it was so. Now Sarah was in complete shock and asked to explain why he was talking such nonsense, as if he had gone crazy. In a fit of anger, she even grabbed him by the shoulder, but Sung-kyung again took it wrong and was even more disappointed. Lee even burst into tears, not understanding how they could do this to her, and Sarah was shocked by such a dramatic turn. Shin began to explain that Song had misunderstood everything. She had just caused Principal Cho some trouble. She again assured them that they hadn't been drinking and that they were driving home in different cars. But then Cho decided to intervene. He wondered what the relationship was between him and Sung-kyung, and she froze in bewilderment, as did the vice president. Sarah only saw the crazy situation between the crazy guy and the girl, and she was stuck in this situation. Then she explained that she would just go home, because no matter how much she explained, none of them could hear her. And if she stayed here, then this misunderstanding would only get worse, after which she headed for the exit. Cho suddenly decided to go after her, but Sung-kyung grabbed his hand and began to demand an explanation of where he was going. The guy only pushed her away, saying that they would talk about it later, and left her alone with his feelings. At this time, Sarah cursed the situation and understood that she needed to sever all ties with this person as soon as possible. She was about to take the elevator down when suddenly someone's fingers got stuck in the closing doors. Then the doors opened and Cho appeared in front of Sarah, and she immediately began to yell, not understanding why he entered the elevator with her. She also didn't understand why he didn't explain anything to Song-kyung, but just walked away from her. Young-won didn't understand what to explain, and Sarah reminded him that he was her fiancé after all. Realizing that it was useless to argue with him, the vice president decided that she would return and explain everything to her friend herself. But suddenly, Cho grabbed her and said that there was no need to explain anything, and the girl was even dumbfounded, realizing that she would go crazy with this idiot. During this time, she had even forgotten what kind of person this Cho Jong-won was, and she didn't want to be around this psychopath. She immediately broke away from him, deciding to run away, but her heel treacherously got stuck between the threshold of the elevator. The vice president screamed to the floor, realizing what a miserable situation she was in now. Then Cho came up to her, holding a shoe that he had released from the threshold, and asked if she was okay. The girl turned to him and began to growl so that he did not approach, just like in some horror movie about a psychopathic killer. Then she came to her senses and ran out into the street, where, fortunately, a car with a driver was already waiting for her, and she asked to hurry up. Sulfur flew into the cabin like a bullet, and when the door closed, she breathed a sigh of relief, hoping that it was already over. Then she received a message from Cho, who wished her a good journey and said goodbye to see her at the office. This infuriated her so much that she began to beat her phone on the seat, and the driver only looked at her with apprehension.